So what are some of really good examples around what a moat could be or should be? I use the niche example around, hey, I could just specialize in one industry and apply like a service to that one industry so that no one else can really come in because I am the go-to guy. What else do you see around for like people going, what is a moat? How could I apply it?
Yeah, so when I think moat, I'll just throw in a few other ones. Is like brand can be a moat. If you've got if people trust a particular brand, that can be a moat. So I'll give you an example. Kim Kardashian, right, I think is an amazing example of this, is because she can literally pick a commodity. She could pick any makeup product and say, buy this, and people would.
Yeah. It's like
so her
$1 billion company
brand,
overnight.
Yeah. So personal brands I really think are a moat. I think they're a fantastic thing where consumers they'll pay extra to buy a product from a particular person and very difficult for other people to replicate. So I think that's a huge one. Second one is high barrier to entry. I'd really think is another one I like. So if someone needs to come up with $1 billion to come and compete with you, like how many people can do that?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, so on the opposite side of that, if you can do a Facebook ads course in a weekend, how many people can come and compete with you?
Just like a personal training course or anything like that. Yep.
Yeah, so online fitness programs is one where it's like a very low barrier to entry.
Yep.
I look at many of them and go, well, if you created a higher barrier of entry to compete with you, you would see that would be less of the case.
Yep.
So this is one mostly for digital stuff. Like the greatest thing for digital stuff is it's easy to get in. The most dangerous side of it is it's easy for everyone else to get in.
It's easy for everyone. Yep. It's software took me 2 years and about $1 million before I could actually sell something.
Yeah, software is a great one though. So it's like you look at that, how much money did you have to spend? How hard is it to replicate? Like people might come into the same space, but it's like there's so few people. Like how hard would it be to compete with HubSpot today?
Totally, yeah.
Or Salesforce. So you look at these and it's like high barrier to entry.
Yeah, it's getting lower, but still yeah, I like that. And the barrier to entry around is I love the concept of the complexity, right?
Yes.
So continue.
No, go for it. Do you want to, you can riff on this one?
Totally. The complexity to deliver a service. And this is one thing that still challenges me to this day around the SEO example, is because to deliver SEO well, and depends on how you sort of level of knowledge of SEO, you really need a good content writer, you need good developers, you need really good sort of PR, like people going out and trying to get links on other people's websites. Like there is a full team around there that you actually need to put in place to deliver it well. And so the complexity around delivering that service is difficult. The only downside, though, in SEO is that the market never saw that complexity and didn't think there was a complexity. They thought one person could do it. And so the complexity for other people to get in, if it's a service, and I know, Charlie, we've got a great example with what we do with Valor Media, where if you need a large team of complementary skill sets to deliver the one thing, it's so much harder for someone else to put it together.
Completely. I'll share the Valor Media example because I put a lot of effort into this moat when I started this business. So I went out and looked, and like you can pretty much find podcast editing for audio like everywhere.
Yep.
It's not actually hard. There's a ton of podcast audio companies, and even these days podcast video companies out there. It is a commodity in my opinion. I would not start a company today doing just one of those. I think it's insane. But what I realized very quickly is that there was no one out there actually offering podcast strategy, podcast production, and then publishing, and then amplification. So that would be like running ads to a podcast. So I took 4 things and I said, if I could design a business model where I'll help someone come up with their podcast strategy aligned to their goals, which is something I developed as a skill, we'll do the editing on audio and video because I know some people aren't doing video. We'll also publish it. So that means put it everywhere online, and then we're going to run ads to it as well. So like we have a media buying team. I couldn't find anyone doing that. And I looked at how hard it would be to compete with me against that, because there's a huge complexity in delivering that well that I'm uniquely suited to.
Yeah.
So the moat become wide, and like people would come into the space, and like the amount of times I've had people come to me, it's like they worked with someone else, but they didn't fulfill one of those components. So the show was a failure. I could just go in and say, oh, look, your strategy sucks. If you let me fix your strategy, we can make you a successful show. Or you're not running ads to your podcast or doing anything to grow it. Like there's no wonder no one's listening.
Talk about
So,
Moat.
yeah, so I think if you can make, again, I don't like saying making the business model more complex, but it's like kind of is, right? It's kind of like it's a very hard to replicate thing in that way.
Yeah, it's very hard for them to continue on. One of my other ones that I love, but is very difficult for a lot of business owners to pull off, is like an ecosystem.
So
Right?
this is the Apple play.
Exactly. Right. So I get someone on my platform and then they can continue to consume. Like I was the guy that I'm like, no, I'm not going to get an Apple. And then my Windows, 2 of my Windows PCs died. And then I bought an Apple laptop because I called so here we go, story. 2 PCs died when I was living in the Philippines, and my cousin was a store manager at JB Hi-Fi in Melbourne. I called him up and I just said, what is the laptop that you never get back? What is like the one that just people never bring back because they're broken? He's like, you don't want to know. No, tell me. And his exact words were, Fisher Paykel, my first computer. And I'm like, I don't think I like where you're going with this. He's like, yeah, it's a Mac. And so I bought one, and now they've consumed me into the entire freaking ecosystem via that gateway drug. And that is a serious moat, because how hard is it for me to get the hell out now? Like, it's going to be so difficult. But now they know I'm going to consume so many of their products. I'm subscribed to their stuff. I've just consumed the entire ecosystem.
It is a great example of a company with a very, very strong moat. And they got many of the layers we talked about. They got brand, they got ecosystem, very hard to compete against, high barrier to entry. I would just say for anyone listening to this is like, the thing that really comes to me with moat is like, what makes you hard to compete against? That's the key. Like, you've got a moat when it's like you're hard to compete with.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.